Hello again, welcome back to the C-axis lathe options here. I'm gonna mention about the face contour toolpath. As you can see that we created some face toolpath here like this, and then we're gonna talk about the cut parameters, depth cuts, and leading out options. And maybe we should also talk about the multi-axis options. For that stuff, I'm gonna unselect for our depth cut options. You're gonna see that this is the 10 millimeters. I'm gonna click here. We can recalculate our toolpath. At that point, actually, I'm gonna click here. Maybe we should also use multi-axis passes here. I'm gonna click here. Maybe we should create 5 and some rough toolpath. It can be 1 millimeter, and I can create the one finished toolpath with actually my spacing 0.1. Okay, we can also make that spring and the 3 times, or we can write 0. It means that I'm gonna use only 1 and the options here. Okay, let's recalculate it. When I am turned to actually the right view, we're gonna see that kind of toolpath. Okay, at that point, maybe this is my final product. Actually, maybe that is turn to right C-plane again. Maybe this is my stock here, like this, and this is gonna be my cutting area. So when we calculate our the toolpath like this, so we're gonna see that kind of the depth here. Okay, maybe we should turn here to the right view, and then we can create some line here, and then we can use the divide options, and then we can use analyze button here. This is the 3.8 or 3.9 millimeter. So after that, I can turn to top again, or isometric perspective. So this is my stock, and then we can turn to multi-passes. That's gonna turn to 5 millimeter. Actually, and according to my analyze, I just need to write here it's a 4 multiply with 1, and then that is gonna be enough for us. So this is my final depth options. Okay, this is -10, and we're gonna cut all my product by using our tool helix. So that's better way to actually create some better surface options, I think. So this is the multi-axis options for our process. Okay, and this is my opinion. Of course, if you intend to create that kind of toolpath, actually I prefer to use that kind of the parameters, of course, according to your the length of your the tool helix. You can write the different options here. Of course, maybe that can be the 50 millimeter, so that's not enough for my tool helix length. And then we can also turn to depth cut, and then we can write here 20. It's a 0 final 0 here, and then we can recalculate it, and then we're gonna also see that kind of toolpath. Okay, and 20 and another 20 and another 20 here. Of course, that's also calculated, and as I mentioned about the previous one, you can see that this is the -16. That's not 20. This is the maximum rough. Of course, according to my process, it's calculated easily like this. Okay, this is the multi-axis options in our process. So we can use the actually by contour options, and the by contour options actually that's gonna be like this. We're gonna focus on the that contour first, like this, and then we can create finished multi passes, and then we can go to the another and the depth of cut, and then we can repeat that process again and again. If you click by depth here, not by contour, and then recalculate it, and we're gonna see that kind of options. Okay, we can create here, here, and then after that process, when we turn to finishing process, actually that one here I'm gonna use and that process. Okay, this is the actually and the depth cut order options. Okay, you can use the by contour or by depth options. Of course, sorry about that, this is the depth cut option, so that's why we cannot see any process here. We need to turn to multi-axis, and the multi-axis process we can turn to by contour or by passes, so we can recalculate it. Yeah, this is the actually, yes, like this, 1 2 3, and then we can repeat and again. Okay, after that we're gonna see the final depth. Okay, and this is the depth options cut and the depth cut order, and this is the multi-axis options. We can also use the actually, let me turn to again and some open geometry here. I can delete that chain, I can add new one. We can start from here, and this is going to be my exit position. At that point, actually, like this, and then we're gonna see the, of course, that's kind of toolpath. When we turn to here, we can also use the rough pass cut direction one way or zigzag position. Okay, when we turn to zigzag position, actually we're gonna see that's kind of options. This is 1, this is 2 with zigzag and another direction, and then we can keep going like this. This is the zigzag options. Okay, if you change and the bypass to by contour, of course we're gonna see the different options here. Okay, and we're gonna see the that's kind of process here. This is 1 2 3 and 4, and then we're gonna see the final depth here, and we can keep going like this. This is the last one, and then this is the final. Okay, this is the and the multi-passes options, multi-passes, and the rough number and spacing 1 millimeter, and the finish 1 number and the spacing 0.1. Okay, so that's it. Okay, and we can also use apply to all finish passes options here. I can unselect that one. If I am create some unselecting options here, we're gonna see the that's kind of toolpath. This is 1 2. Okay, let me that stuff as 2, and then we're gonna see clearly here. This is 1 and 2 and final, and then we can go here 1 and the 2, and then we're gonna see the final here, and then 1 roughing and the 2 roughing, and then we're gonna see the final here. Okay, I can create unselect options here, apply to all finish passes options here. Okay, we're gonna focus on the here by contour options, and then maybe we should also turn to bypass options. It's a roughing. This is 1, 2, and then we can create final process here like this. So this is the actually bypass options. Okay, so maybe we should also use that one to be able to see what is the difference applied to all finish passes here. I can write here 2, I can recalculate it. I'm gonna click here, 1, 2, 3, and then we can repeat that process 2 times for each passes. Okay, if I am not selecting that one, we're gonna see the only repeating options here, 1, 2, 3, and then this is finish 1, finish 2, and then we're gonna only see the finish and 2 options only for and the depth of cut. Okay, this is the actually, and apply all the finish passes. If you write any spring passes here, this is my spring passes too. If I am clicking here, apply to the all finish passes, it means that we're gonna use spring passes process for depth of cut and depth of cut and the depth of cut. Okay, but we don't want that. Okay, we can use the spring passes here. This is the 2. I'm not clicking apply to all finish passes. Okay, so we can also change our feed rate and spindle speed for actually and override and the feed speed options here for our multi passes. That's also options here. Okay, we can also use the finish passes process here. Maybe we should write here 0, and then I'm gonna turn to finish passes here. This is the 1, 2, and 3. Maybe we should turn to actually, oops, this is the because of the partial options. I can reselect that one. Can select like this, and then we can recalculate it. And then this is the multi-passes options. We're gonna turn to and the by contour options, one-way options again. This is the depth, this is the by contour options. This is the final depth. Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, if you would like to create some and options here for multi-passes, this is the finish passes options. We can also use the all depths or final depth options. So it means that if you create some and finishing process here, this is my finish, of course. If I am clicking all depths options here, it means that I'm gonna create some toolpath like this. This is the roughing, another roughing, and then we can create finishing process, roughing and finishing toolpath and roughing and another finishing process. Okay, this is we have here. If I am clicking here, final depth, if I'm clicking here, it means that we're gonna see that roughing, and then another roughing, and then final depth, we can see roughing, and finishing process. Okay, this is the final depth options. If I am clicking here, defining by and the rough depth cut options, we can select that and the number of our and the roughing depths and the which final depths we can see here. We can also organize it. Okay, at that point I can select all and the depths here. Okay, this is roughing and finishing process again. Okay, so when we consider, actually this is the multi-passes options. Actually I can click here and by contour or and by passes I can turn here. We can also turn to and the by depth options here. We can recalculate it and then we can click here 1, 2, and we can see final finishing process here, and then again we can also see the finishing process here. Okay, and if you would like to split the roughing and finishing process with the different tool, of course we can turn here. We can make that stuff 0. We can also make that stuff 0. This is also going to turn to 0. And we can turn here. This is the stock to leave on the wall. It can be 0.2 millimeter maybe. Like this. This is the roughing. And then we can copy here and paste here. And then this is the same. And then we can use the same tool or we can change the tool. It's not important. And we can use the same depth cut here. And we can unselect our multi-passes. And then we can turn to 0. And then we can recalculate it again. So it means that we can select like this. So it's gonna turn to like this: roughing, and knee depths, and roughing, and knee depths, roughing, and then finishing, and finishing. Okay, that's quite important. So this is the multi-axis options for and the face toolpath. Okay, this is the depth cut options. Okay, and this is the multi-axis options, and that's all. Thank you very much for listening to me. I really appreciated your interest.